Terrorism must end. Not paused, not managed, but ended. India's message is clear. If attacks continue from across the border, there will be consequences. The world cannot turn a blind eye while known terrorists operate freely in broad daylight. This isn't speculation, it's fact. The state is involved and India will act. We don't need third party mediation. We need accountability. Terrorism is not diplomacy, it's a crime, and we're responding with clarity and resolve.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into some really significant statements from India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar.
That's right.
This deep dive is based on his recent interviews with Dutch media while he was visiting the Netherlands. We're working directly from an article covering this in the Indian Express.
And these comments, well, they're pretty critical for understanding India's current foreign policy thinking.
Especially on Pakistan, right? Terrorism, regional security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Key stuff. So for anyone tracking current affairs, maybe, prepping for exams like the UPSC where international relations is big, or frankly, just wanting to be informed, this is important context.
Absolutely. So our mission here is simple. Unpack that Indian Express article, pull out the main insights from those interviews.
Help you quickly get the core messages.
And understand what they might imply.
Consider it your kind of direct briefing on these key takeaways.
And look, if you find this deep dive valuable, do give it a like. Please subscribe for more like this, and definitely drop any questions or thoughts in the comments. We do read them.
We really appreciate the engagement.
Okay, let's get into it. The Indian Express article really flags one central point from the minister. This demand for what was the phrase?
A definitive end to terrorism.
Right, a definitive end coming from Pakistan.
And what's striking is how direct he was, according to the reporting. He didn't just suggest involvement.
No.
He apparently stated quite clearly that the Pakistan government and its army are involved in the country's terror infrastructure.
Wow. Okay, that's blunt.
Very.
The article mentioned an analogy he used, too, something about Amsterdam.
Yeah, it was quite vivid. He apparently asked, if you had huge military centers right in the middle of Amsterdam, would the Dutch government not know?
Okay. So the point is about the sheer scale and visibility. You couldn't not know.
Precisely. And the article quotes him backing this up. He pointed to, known terrorists, people on UN sanction lists.
Living in Pakistan.
Living there, operating in big cities, apparently in broad daylight.
Yeah.
Addresses known, activities known.
So the argument reported is, this isn't some hidden thing, it's open.
Not according to him. The quote in the article is really strong. So let's not pretend that Pakistan is not involved. The state is involved. The army is up to its neck in it.
Up to its neck? That leaves no room for doubt about his reported view.
None at all. And it leads to the warning, also reported clearly.
Which is?
If these terrorist attacks originating from Pakistan continue, there will be consequences, repercussions.
Okay, a very firm line drawn.
Which connects to the whole context of the recent military situation, the ceasefire, specifically after Operation Sindoor, which the article mentions.
Right. And the article details how India says that ceasefire came about, negotiated directly.
Directly between the two countries.
And that detail, as reported, seems important because it pushes back against other narratives, doesn't it?
It does. The article explicitly notes that it counters claims of third-party involvement, particularly claims made repeatedly by former U.S. President Donald Trump.
Who had claimed credit for brokering it.
Right. But the report quotes Jaishankar saying India told everyone, including the U.S., basically, if Pakistan wants to stop, they need to tell us.
Directly.
Directly. He said their general had to call India's general, and, quote, that is what happened.
So the emphasis is on that direct, high-level military channel.
Exactly. India's reported insistence on it.
The article also mentions Jaishankar explaining the message behind continuing Operation Sindoor even with the ceasefire.
Yes, that it sends a signal.
A signal
that if you see acts like the one on April 22nd, there will be a response. India will hit terrorists where they are.
Even if that's in Pakistan?
Even if that's across the border, yes. That's the message reported.
Though he did add a nuance, didn't he? The article included that.
He did. He reportedly clarified that continuing the operation isn't the same as, actively firing across the border constantly. It's about maintaining that pressure, that capability to respond.
Got it. So readiness and resolve.
That seems to be the gist of it. Now, moving slightly beyond the immediate security stuff. The interviews, as reported, also touched on terrorism versus the Kashmir dispute.
Yes. how India views that relationship or lack thereof,
And the article says Jaishankar drew a very sharp line.
separating the two issues completely.
Absolutely. His position, as reported, is that terrorism is its own thing, an international crime, completely unacceptable. It shouldn't be excused or, justified by linking it to Kashmir or any other issue.
He apparently gave specific examples of the impact, too.
Yes, the article mentions him pointing out how terrorists targeted tourism in Jammu and Kashmir.
Which is vital for the region.
Exactly. And that, in his view, they deliberately tried to give attacks a religious color for their own limited selfish purposes.
And his reported message to the world on this.
Basically, don't buy into it. The quote is, "The world should not accept such practices. Treat terrorism as terrorism."
Oh, okay. And then on Kashmir itself, the article relayed India's core position.
It did. That J&K joining India in 1947 is a historical fact. Settled.
And it included the claim about Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well.
Yes, referring to Pakistan as the illegal occupiers who should return the territory to the rightful owner.
Which India states is them.
Correct. So a very strong reiteration of India's long-held territorial stance, as reported.
And when asked about mediation, Trump's offers came up again.
They did. And according to the article, Jaishankar's response was consistent. It's bilateral. Just India and Pakistan, period.
No change in that position reported then.
None whatsoever.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, the interviews also reportedly covered the link between security and economic growth.
Yeah, how India sees those two interacting.
And Jaishankar's view, summarized in the article,
That they're basically two sides in the same coin. Economic growth and security, you can't separate them.
did he compare India's situation to others?
He did, according to the report. He suggested India's security challenges are, well, significantly greater than Europe's.
Meaning security has to be a top priority alongside growth.
Right. The conclusion presented is that you don't really choose. For India today, security and prosperity are intrinsically linked. They go together.
Understood. And just for context, the article mentioned where these interviews took place, part of a wider trip.
Yes, it mentioned his tour included the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany.
And the purpose of the Hague visit specifically.
It was reportedly part of the prep work for Prime Minister Modi's visit later this year. The article notes an earlier planned visit by Modi was canceled because of the heightened conflict situation back then.
Right. And in Berlin.
He apparently chaired a regional conference of India's ambassadors in Europe.
So using that platform to reinforce these messages.
Seems like it. The article connects it back, saying discussions there included Operation Sindoor, the zero-tolerance message on terror.
And strategy with Europe.
Exactly. How to deepen engagement with Europe amid all the global changes. So these themes are being pushed consistently through different diplomatic channels, according to reporting.
Okay, so let's try and sum up the key takeaways from this deep dive, all based on that Indian Express report.
Right.
We've seen India's very firm, very public stance on terrorism it links to Pakistan, direct accusations of state and army involvement.
A clear separation of terrorism from the Kashmir issue, framing terrorism as an independent crime.
Reiteration of Kashmir being bilateral, along with the claim on Pakistan-occupied areas.
And this strong view that national security and economic progress are fundamentally intertwined for India now.
These statements, as reported, really give you a window into the strategic thinking, don't they?
Absolutely. They offer crucial insight into India's foreign policy rationale and how it's approaching these really complex regional challenges.
Yeah.
Essential points for anyone following closely, maybe particularly those preparing for exams needing global affairs knowledge.
So here's a final thought, just based on what the Indian Express reported from these interviews for you to consider. Minister Jaishankar laid out a case, citing specific reported facts about terrorists operating openly in Pakistan and asserted direct state involvement. Given that detailed assertion, what do you think are the biggest challenges India might face in getting the wider international community to, well, fully accept that narrative and maybe take more concrete action based on it?
That's a really interesting question. It points to the complexities of international diplomacy and differing national interests, even when faced with such direct statements.
Definitely something to mull over. Okay, that wraps up this deep dive, based entirely on the source material from the Indian Express.
We hope unpacking this was useful for you, helping you get up to speed quickly on these significant comments.
Please do remember to like this content if it was helpful, subscribe for more deep dives into current affairs and other key topics, and let us know your thoughts or any further questions in the comments below.
We really value your input. Thanks for joining us.